The Ordo Xenos, colloquially sometimes referred to as the Alien Hunters, is one of the three primary subdivisions or Ordos Majoris of the powerful and secretive organization known as the Inquisition, alongside the Ordo Malleus, Demon Hunters, and the Ordo Hereticus, Witch Hunters. Its purpose is to protect the Imperium of man from all internal and external threats caused by intelligent alien species or their influence upon humans. The Ordo Xenos is served by its chamber militant, the Deathwatch Space Marines, who draw on veteran Astartes from chapters all across the Imperium to form the Deathwatch's kill teams and destroy the many foul Xenos threats to the survival of mankind. Armed with the best human and alien technology available, extremely knowledgeable about their foe, and filled with the xenophobic hatred for non-human species that drives so much of Imperial culture since the Horus Heresy, the Ordo Xenos can respond to any alien threat. Their tactics vary depending on the situation and the level of alien taint revealed. Where the threat is subtle, they will use guile and stealth, wielding their power as if it was a scalpel used to cut out a growing malignant cancer. When the alien menace is great, the Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos can commandeer the aid of entire regiments of the Astra Militarum and the Deathwatch. The Ordo Xenos was created in the mid-32 and millennium, though in fact the Inquisition had been founded over 1,000 standard years earlier in the early 31st millennium at the express order of the Emperor after the great betrayal of the Horus Heresy had begun. The Inquisition was initially a relatively small and highly secretive organization, comprising only a small group of skilled Imperial agents drawn from all of the Imperial Adepta and nobility, as well as select Loyalist Space Marines from both the Loyalist and Traitor legions. They were tasked by the Emperor and chosen by Malcador the Sigillite at the end of the heresy with uncovering and destroying every threat to the Imperium of man, from both without and within, but with a special emphasis on defeating the servants of chaos. The exact origins of the Ordo Xenos and the Deathwatch are uncertain, but its inception can be traced to the period known as the Time of Rebirth in 544 M32, and the arrival in Imperial space of the largest orc, Wach, seen since the Ullanor Crusade during the closing years of the Great Crusade. Led by the mysterious warlord known only as the Beast, this greenskin invasion threatened the very throne world of Terra itself. During this conflict, remembered as the War of the Beast, it was the newly elected Lord Commander of the Imperium, chapter master and sole surviving member of the Imperial Fists, named Courland, who devised the concept of utilizing small elite Adeptus Astartes kill teams to eliminate vital strategic assets of the encroaching greenskins and eventually the Beast itself. Though reluctant at first to acquiesce to the Lord Commander's plan to approve the creation of such a force, since it would only strengthen the power of the Space Marines within the Imperium, desperate times called for desperate measures. Therefore, the High Lords of Terra consented to Courland's proposal. The original recruits for this newly created elite force were drawn from the survivors of the various chapters who took part in the initial invasion of the Beast's capital world of Ullanor Prime. These chapters suffered severe losses during the invasion. Thus, standing in vigil over their fallen brethren, the seeds of the Deathwatch were sown. Lord Commander Courland eventually came to an agreement with the inquisitorial representative Wienand to assuage any doubts by the rest of the Senatorum Imperialis that this elite force, named the Deathwatch in honor of those brethren who had died in battle on Ullanor Prime, would fall under the purview of the Inquisition, but an Astartes would ultimately serve as its chapter master. It was in the wake of the War of the Beast that the Inquisition itself was formally divided into the first two of the Ordos Majoris, the Ordo Malleus and the Ordo Xenos. The Deathwatch was chosen to be an integral part of the newborn Ordo Xenos and serve as its chamber militant the way the Grey Knight served as the chamber militant of the demon-hunting Ordo Malleus. The Ordo Xenos could also be said to have gradually evolved before its formal recognition in the wake of the War of the Beast from that group of Inquisitors who were primarily interested in investigating and studying the alien species of the Milky Way galaxy and eliminating any threat to the Imperium that these Xenos represented. The Inquisitors of the Ordo Xenos accept responsibility for protecting humanity from the predations of hostile aliens. To most of the Imperium, the alien is an abomination, a heathen who desires humanity's destruction and who must be slain for the good of mankind. Most Inquisitors share this view and pursue the alien to the point of extinction if they can. Some aliens are a threat to the Imperium in a military sense, invading large swaths of Imperial space, ransacking planets and killing or enslaving the inhabitants. The green-skinned rampaging orcs and voracious tyrannids are chief among these large-scale threats. The Astra Militarum and Navis Imperialis are the main weapons deployed against these Xenos hordes, and the Imperium's war zones are constantly ablaze with battles against them. The Ordo Xenos is instrumental in leading the Imperium's military forces against major Xenos invasions, gathering intelligence and deploying troops. An Inquisitor in this position makes decisions that can cost millions of lives, and he or she must be prepared to go further than even the most hard-hearted Astra Militarum general or Navy admiral in stemming the alien tide. Some of the Ordo Xenos' greatest Inquisitors, such as the legendary Inquisitor Lord Fidus Cryptman, have sacrificed entire worlds to deny them to alien forces. The tactics of the Ordo's Inquisitors and their retinues vary depending on the situation and the level of alien taint revealed. Where the threat is subtle, they will use guile and stealth, wielding their power as if it was a scalpel used to cut out a growing malignant cancer. When the alien menace is great, the Inquisitor can commandeer the aid of entire regiments of the Astra Militarum. As well as having the capacity to command the Imperium's military forces, the Ordo Xenos also have access to the Ordo's Chamber Militant, the Deathwatch Space Marines. The Deathwatch is an unusual chapter that draws its members from the veteran members of other chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, with Astartes serving in the Deathwatch for a set period of time before returning to their original chapters. Most Space Marine chapters are a part of this ancient agreement, sending Space Marines with the most appropriate skills to be trained and equipped for a term of service as specialized alien hunters under the command of the Ordo Xenos. A kill team of Deathwatch Space Marines is invaluable when an Inquisitor comes to exterminate an alien infestation, investigate a potentially deadly alien world, or eliminate a particularly loathsome Xenos creature. Some Deathwatch squads are placed at the disposal of an entire inquisitorial conclave dedicated to the protection of a single Imperial sector, but most of them are appointed to the retinue of a particular Inquisitor until their mission is complete. While many Ordo Xenos Inquisitors believe that all aliens must be killed, this is not true for all of them. Some believe that if an intelligent alien species does not wish the Imperium harm and does not move against Imperial interests, then cooperating with them is not out of the question. Some aliens possess technology that far surpasses the Imperium's own, such as the elegant digital weapons made by the ape-like Jacairo, and trading for such technology may be to the Imperium's benefit. Furthermore, the Imperium shares common enemies with some Xenos species, and alliances between Imperial and alien forces are sometimes a necessity. Some Ordo Xenos Inquisitors actively foster these alliances, believing that their superior knowledge of alien methods and mindsets negates the risks of collaborating with Xenos. These beliefs are considered radical among the Ordo Xenos, and their adherents can be shunned or even hunted down by their brother Inquisitors. Nevertheless, the contact an Ordo Xenos Inquisitor has with alien species can impart a belief that some of them can be used, not just destroyed, by the Imperium. The primary remit of the Ordo Xenos is to defend the Imperium against the threat of the alien, a duty that goes far beyond merely confronting non-human creatures in open conflict alongside the Astra Militarum or Adeptus Astartes. In order to oppose the Xenos threat, the Ordo Xenos must undertake the dangerous task of investigating and studying intelligent alien species with a mind to destroying any that is deemed to be a threat to humanity. It must learn the nature of its inhuman foes, seek out their weaknesses, and learn how to counter their strengths. More than this, it must be ever watchful, not only against what lies in the void beyond, but against other, often more subtle and insidious threats that arise much closer to home. Such threats are often posed by renegade humans, some corrupt, others merely opportunistic. Such individuals are known to trade in alien technology or seek to hide alien species within the Imperium's midst, often for the purposes of experimentation, profit, or bloody entertainment. Many of the Ordo Xenos' operations are not focused outward, but inward on the Imperium itself, and with good cause. The Ordo's records are littered with bloody atrocities and vast losses of life that have resulted where the alien has taken hold of an Imperial world via stealth, infiltration, or slow taint, as well as countless incidents where the influence of alien technology, misunderstood artifacts, and xeno-lore have resulted in unintended disaster and tragic consequence. Within the Calixis sector, the job of the Ordo Xenos is a particularly complex and difficult one. This challenge is in no small part because the sector itself lies on the very edge of the Imperium. It is a borderland flanked for much of its perimeter by the uncharted void of space beyond the Emperor's light. No complete or even meaningful control can be kept over this vast, open border, and human and alien vessels can pass largely unobserved and unchallenged despite the best efforts of Battlefleet Calixis and the Imperial listening stations. This dark horizon is crossed regularly by rogue traders, the explorator fleets of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and even by smaller independent merchant and prospecting vessels quite legitimately. Where such legal traffic ends and outlaw traffic, such as smugglers, renegades, non-compliance, and pirates, begins is often a blurred line. Each one of these is a vector, a means by which the alien and alien influences can flow like poison into the Imperium's veins, and the eyes of the Ordo Xenos cannot be everywhere at once. Although all aliens are officially viewed as anathema by the Imperium, some are tolerated to a lesser degree. Such species tend to be primitive in technology and culture, or constrained to a backwater planet far from Imperial space. In many parts of the Imperium, contact with starfaring alien species is not uncommon, and on some frontier worlds trading with aliens is a fact of life. Such dealings are usually overlooked by the authorities and would certainly not warrant censorship or intervention. Other species, however, represent such a threat to humanity that the Ordo Xenos brand them with a high Gothic stigma, the Xenos Horrificus, marking them as high-priority targets who must be hunted down and purged at every opportunity. The brand does not merely apply to the Xenos themselves, but also to any who have had dealings with them. More than one rogue trader has been branded with the mark of the Xenos Horrificus, marking him out as an enemy of the Ordo Xenos, the Deathwatch, and mankind itself. When the alien threat is too great for even the requisitioned Astra Militarum or Planetary Defense Force troops of the Inquisition to handle, the Inquisitor will call on the elite battle brothers of the Deathwatch, the chamber militant of the Ordo Xenos, who operate in kill teams made up of elite, veteran Astartes from all of the Space Marine chapters in the Imperium. Where all Deathwatch members wear black power armor, except for one shoulder plate which bears the colors of their original chapter, so as not to dishonor their power armor's machine spirit, and the other is emblazoned with the unique chapter badge of the Deathwatch. Certain chapters make for great xeno-hunters, like the Ultramarines, with their long and infamous experience with the Tyranids during the Battle of Macragge, or the Crimson Fists, with their experience against the Orcs during the Battle of Rin's World. The Ordo Xenos is well known for either being extremely ponderous in its operations or extremely quick to act. A major example of their slowness to act was when the Tau first made contact with Imperial planetary governors on the eastern fringe of the galaxy, and these aliens' advanced technology was allowed to penetrate all the way to Terra through the Imperial trade routes as their technology was bought and sold by Imperial merchants. However, at times the Ordo Xenos can truly bring the Emperor's justice to those alien species who seek to challenge human domination of the galaxy, a prime example of which was seen during the Damocles Gulf Crusade, in which an Ordo Xenos-led Navis Imperialis battle group spearheaded an Imperial crusade deep into Tau space, although its progression slowed to a halt when they reached Dal-Eth, one of the core sept worlds of the Tau Empire. It is worth noting that, with the arrival of High Fleet Behemoth in the galaxy from the intergalactic void, the forces of the Damocles Crusade was forced to withdraw from their siege of Dal-Eth to attend to that first massive Tyranid invasion. The Deathwatch kill teams may specialize in defending or attacking any known alien race, including the Tau, Tyranids, Necrons, Orcs, or even Eldari. It depends upon the experience of the team. A kill team can be composed of groups of 5, 10, or even 20 Astartes in rare cases, depending on the size and scope of the alien problem. In extreme circumstances, they will operate alongside other armies of the Imperium, including Astra Militarum regiments under inquisitorial control, or even elements of other Space Marine chapters that have responded to the Inquisition's request for assistance. When a battle brother leaves the Deathwatch after his term of service to return to his original chapter, he gains the honor of keeping the Deathwatch's silver badge on his power armor's left shoulder plate. Inquisitor Al-Subai. Al-Subai was recently elevated to Inquisitor status after serving as an interrogator in the service of Inquisitor Van Voygens. While Van Voygens combs the very edge of Imperial space for alien civilizations, Al-Subai's role is to search for alien influence in the populated worlds of the sector. Probably the youngest Inquisitor in the Cabal, Al-Subai is deeply pious, and he looks it, usually attending gatherings in a monastic habit worn over sturdy, practical carapace armor. Al-Subai believes that everything in the galaxy is connected, and that the various alien species and their depredations are part of a larger web of hostility generated by the galaxy. The galaxy, Al-Subai believes, is reacting to human occupation like a body reacting to a disease. To him, aliens, as well as all creatures of the warp, are symptoms of the galaxy's enmity towards mankind. Al-Subai therefore advocates the destruction of all aliens, especially those who influence humans. He considers his remit to cover not only alien-influenced cults and corruption, but also the trafficking in alien creatures and their technology. Anyone dealing with aliens or their artifacts is an enemy of humanity, and nothing gives Al-Subai greater satisfaction than to hunt them down and subject them to whatever punishment the Cabal decrees. To Al-Subai, the Propheticum Hereticus Tenebrae is the handiwork of alien manipulation. Inquisitor Vils Andarion. Inquisitor Andarion is one of several Ordo Xenos luminaries drawn to watch Fortress Arioch in the Jericho Reach since the Jericho Maw Warp Gate opened. His primary interest is in the gate itself, but the dangers in the Well of Night have driven him to Arioch to pursue his investigations. Here he can at least study data gathered about the Warp Gate in its dormant state throughout the Age of Shadows. Andarion keeps a substantial retinue of adepts, savants, and servitors at the Tower of Brass for this very purpose. They work night and day seeking after some elusive piece of data Andarion apparently needs. Inquisitor Andarion has also expressed a keen interest in Xenos legends throughout the Jericho Reach. The older and more obscure, the better. He has made several expeditions to the planets Jove's descent, and Karlak following in the footsteps of Inquisitor Vincent. Andarion's interest in the local myths of a city beneath the sea brought him to Karlak prior to Vincent's disappearance, and the two cooperated in the investigation for a time. Andarion has resolved not to let the matter of Inquisitor Vincent's disappearance drop until Vincent, or more likely his slayer, is found. Inquisitor Staven Arcturos. Inquisitor Arcturos is one of the alien species scholars of the Xeno Hybris faction, serving within the Inquisition's Calixis Conclave. He was initially drawn to the Calixis sector during his lifelong study of the Eldar and their influence in the Segmentum Obscurus. For decades, Arcturos tracked down any trace of this enigmatic alien culture, ranging all the way out to the Gothic sector and back. He uncovered tantalizing hints and rumors, but rarely anything solid. His first true breakthrough occurred after a battle with an unidentified Xenos vessel in the Hazaroth Abyss subsector. The Inquisitor's ship was crippled, helpless before the enemy crafts weapons, but Arcturus was rescued by the timely intervention of an Eldar cruiser. This ship belonged to none other than Ulthir Alarian, an infamous Eldar corsair who prowls the space lanes of the Calixis sector. It is rumored that Arcturus learned great knowledge from a seer aboard Alarian's ship. What happened later is shrouded in mystery. Some claim that Arcturus became a guest of an Eldar craft world, whilst others say he roamed distant stars, transported by alien witchery. Whatever the truth, upon Arcturus's return, he was a deeply changed man. Arcturus swiftly became one of the Xenos Hybris' faction's most fervent members, and he is reputed to have a number of aliens amongst his retinue. Those who have spoken to Arcturus report that he is now obsessed with the Eldar's means of viewing the future through a series of psychically active runestones, and that he constantly practices this vile form of divination, basing every act on what he sees in the patterns of the stones. Inquisitor Ark Ashton, according to apocryphal tales, the legendary Ordo Xenos Inquisitor, was the first commissioner of a specialized Cadence Prometheum destroyer insuration device. Crafted by the artisan masters of the world of Cadence, the destroyer is a highly advanced pattern of hand flamer that uses force compression technology similar to that of a plasma weapon to create a superheated thermal incandescent blast that burns far hotter and with greater fuel efficiency than that of a usual flamer. Inquisitor Harosa Barnabas. The tales of Inquisitor Harosa Barnabas date back 4 centuries, and none of them reflect on him any great credit. The current generations of servants in the Tower of Brass, for example, are mainly descended from his prisoners, trapped in bureaucratic limbo once they were exonerated by evidence uncovered after his death. A trail of lost artifacts and botched missions followed his retinue that was so dismal and persistent that some suspected a cunningly hidden secret agenda was being played out. If so, it was being done beneath the very noses of the Ordo Xenos, and surely with the collusion of many of their most highly placed members. The majority of Barnabas's contributions to the Ordo's knowledge are now sealed away inside quarantine zones in the catacombs, allegedly too dangerous and toxic to approach. Inquisitor Barnabas was always fond of bold gestures and cut an impressive figure to the masses, very much fulfilling the commonest conceptions of what an inquisitor should be. His sweeping pogroms were always a terror among the noble classes, and that gave him a good deal of popularity with the workers. Unfortunately, Barnabas's billowing cloak and impressive armor failed to impress the Eldar in a skirmish on Adronicus, and he met his demise there on the end of an Asuriani fire lance. Inquisitor Hezekiah Carmillus, Inquisitor of the Chamber. Inquisitor Hezekiah Carmillus of the Ordo Xenos has served the Inquisition for over 3 standard centuries. In that time, she has led pogroms that have scoured Xenos infestations from a dozen worlds, condemned and executed Lord Commanders and Admirals, broken influential and traitorous rogue traders, and denounced radicalism amongst her own kind. Tall and blade-thin, she wears exoskeletal enhanced armor at all times, and keeps a court of diverse and deadly warriors, collected from dozens of worlds, at her beck and call. Her voice is silken honey at one moment, and unyielding steel the next as she desires. She will not, under any circumstances, allow herself to be perceived as anything other than what she is, a warrior savant in the service of the Emperor of mankind. She is undaunted by the superhuman killers whose company her duty now bids her keep, and she will brook no challenges to her authority, in particular by other Inquisitors, although she is ever conscious of its limitations. Inquisitor Carmillus has been the Inquisitor of the Chamber and Mistress of the Tower of Brass of Watch Fortress Arioch in the Jericho Reach for 16 Terran years, and has executed her sworn tasks with precise dedication and utter ruthlessness. While possessing a warlike temperament, she is also highly intelligent and subtle. These traits make her an ideal emissary of the Inquisition to the domain of the Deathwatch, and well-equipped to deal with its Adeptus Astartes masters. She has voiced the opinion in the chamber that Although she is in favor of the Achilles Crusade, a contingency plan should be drawn up to destroy the Warp Gate should the Crusade suffer catastrophic failure. She believes that the Warp Gate possesses a vast threat if it is no longer under the Imperium's direct control. Much of her other motivations, however, remain a tightly held secret. Inquisitor Gregor Eisenhorn, an Amalathian member of the Ordo Xenos, Eisenhorn was the infamous Inquisitor who orchestrated the downfall of Quixos the Bright and Pontius Glaw using a stolen demon host named Cherubael, a former tool of Quixos. He seemingly vanished soon after the downfall of Pontius, having been declared a heretic by Inquisitor Ozma of the Ordo Malleus, and this bad reputation stayed with him despite attempts to clear his name by other Ordo Xenos members. A man of near-terrifying willpower and ferocious intellect, Eisenhorn has since, along with his former pupil Gideon Ravenor, battled the malignant chaos cult known as the Divine Fraternity. Inquisitor Ezu Grail. Only one thing brought Inquisitor Ezu Grail to the Jericho Reach: Tyranids. Grail sees the Tyranids as the biggest single threat facing the Imperium today, and it's matter she will expound on at great length given any opportunity. Grail has based herself at Watch Fortress Arioch for the express purpose of lobbying for more action on the Orpheus salient, and her clashes with the resident Inquisitor of the Chamber have been loud and public. As a result, she's chose to take suites far removed from the Tower of Brass and directly over the Bestiatrium, distilling her bile and vitriol and lengthy reports to the Chamber of Vigilance. Grail has a sympathetic ear from members of the Deathwatch as they fully appreciate the exponential threat a hive fleet can become with access to enough biomass. However, it's been a harder job convincing officers of the Crusade and her fellow Inquisitors of the need to divert all reinforcements coming through the Warp Gate to the Orpheus salient. Grail clings to hopes that the Omega Vault will open to reveal some weapon to stop the Tyranids, not just within the Jericho Reach, but across the entire galaxy. Inquisitor Lord Parnival Grunwald. Parnival Grunwald is a notable Puritan Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos who faithfully served the Imperium for over 200 Terran years. He was an accomplished expert in the field of xenology. One of his most notable actions was the discovery and subsequent persecution of the deadly Xenos known as the Lacrimol. Grunwald created a conclave, the Conclave Conservati, and appealed to his fellow Inquisitors on the deadly menace the Lacrimol posed to the Imperium. He soon earned the title of the Xenoscourge of Helshin for his successful persecution of these foul creatures. Inquisitor Thaddeus Hack. Thaddeus Hack is an Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos and a veteran of almost a century of service to the Imperium. Very little of Hack's early career is known to his peers, as he came to the Calixis sector already in possession of the Inquisitorial Rosette. Soon after joining the ranks of the Ordo's Calixis, Hack became embroiled in the machinations of the Ocularians, a radical faction of the Inquisition obsessed with divining the future and thereby learning what enemies must be faced before they become too powerful to defeat. For over a decade, Thaddeus Hack moved amongst the unseen and silent courts of the Ocularians, mastering many of the arts of divination and uncovering many dire threats to the future of the sector. One such divination took Hack beyond the Calixis sector, through the Maw, and into the far reaches of the Coronis Expanse. In a cold tomb on a dead, windswept planet on the verge of the Igarian Dominion, Thaddeus Hack faced the phantom of a long-dead race. In so doing, he defeated his foe and undoubtedly saved many lives, but he was changed, his powers of divination gone, torn from him at the climax of that dread combat. The Inquisitor wandered the Expanse for several years, descending into a madness born of his inability to see into the future. He could not return to his fellow Ocularians or to the Calixis sector, and so he fell amongst the lowest of the low, the so-called footfallen of the Coronis Expanse. Some say that Hack forgot that he was an Inquisitor for a time, or else was conducting such secret missions that his filthy, ragged countenance and the black light of insanity shining from his eyes was a highly convincing charade. Whatever the truth, Hawk strayed into places few have ever returned from, and came back possessed of dark knowledge gleaned from carvings predating the birth of humanity itself. Inquisitor Calistrati. Calistrati was an inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos and a specialist in genestealer infestations. After months of investigation on the world of Avalos, she tracked the source of the infestation from its origins out in the great southern farmlands and into Lord's home. Initially, she believed that the Lord Governor Thorsholt was complicit in the spread of the infestation. However, she later came to realize he was merely incompetent. What she didn't know was that ever since she set foot upon Avalos, she had been watched by the Broodlord and his minions, and when her path finally led her to Lord's home, the ancient genestealer chose to act, igniting an uprising and plunging the city into chaos. The Inquisitor dispatched some of her team to deal with the uprising, while she took the rest and sought out the Broodlord, fearing aid from the Deathwatch would not arrive before the city fell. Unfortunately for her, she did not survive her encounter with the Broodlord and his children. Inquisitor Lord Quatamaz Knail. Inquisitor Lord Knail was a former member of the Calixian Conclave who, in the aftermath of his expeditions into the Hazaroth Abyss subsector, penned the infamous Calixian Black Grimoire, which takes the shape of a small black data slate made of high-impact polyflex that opens in the fashion of a clasped book and also has a short-range audio and picked recording and playback function. The grimoire was substantially added to a century later by the infamous Inquisitor Kol Shek. The Black Grimoire is no less than a field manual detailing many forms of Xenos creatures they had encountered in their long years of service, explaining how to identify, combat, and destroy them. The very existence of the grimoire is a point of contention among the Inquisitors of the Calixian Conclave, as most in the Ordo Malleus feel that such information should never leave the heavily guarded libraries of the Ordos, while more Puritan factions of the Ordo Hereticus claim that the work is far too dangerous to be allowed to exist at all, and all copies should be hunted down and purged. Inquisitor Lord Kripman, well-versed through hard experience in knowledge of the Tyranids and their infestation techniques, Inquisitor Kripman was responsible for first identifying the genestealer infestation preceding High Fleet Leviathan. He later authorized the largest single act of genocide the Imperium has ever inflicted on itself by abandoning or destroying all worlds in High Fleet Leviathan's path. For his actions, he was issued a Carta Extremis and was stripped of his title and position in the Inquisition. However, this did not stop him, and he soon led his loyal Deathwatch Astartes to capture live genestealers, place them in stasis, and use them to lure the High Fleet into the worlds controlled by the Orcs of Octavius, slowing down the High Fleet's progress towards Terra while it sought to digest that massive Orc empire. Inquisitor Solomon Locke. Solomon Locke was an Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos and a veteran of the Hrood infestation of Chincair, who was tasked with investigating the sudden loss of contact from an Imperial research facility on the world of Beta Anphelion 4 in 850. M41. Locke, the Elysian Drop Troops 99th D Detachment, a force drawn from the 226th Cadian Shock Troops Regiment, an Adeptus Mechanicus Biologus Exploritas force, headed by Magos Biologus Arthon, and a task force of Red Scorpion Space Marines, went into orbit above the clouded and hostile moon. The Imperial task force soon learned the horrible truth. The Mechanicus tech priests on Beta Anphelion 4 had been conducting biological research upon captured subspecies of Tyranids. Their containment of the savage Xenos had ultimately failed, and the Tyranids had escaped into the wild, rapidly increased their numbers, and then wiped out the small population of the Imperial research station. Solomon Locke's task force now faced a similar overwhelming population of Tyranids. The Red Scorpions received orders to withdraw from the hopeless situation, but they refused to take any of the other Imperial survivors on their transports. In a last stand, Locke succeeded in slaying a Hierophant Bio-Titan, only to see two more stride out of the ammonia fog of Beta Anphelion. Locke was able to transmit a record of his last days from Beta Amphileon before to his fellow Inquisitors in the Ordo Xenos, and his final fate is unknown, though he is presumed dead. Inquisitor Jaina Orakiel. Jaina Orakiel has been in the Inquisition service for many solar decades, first as an acolyte to the famed Ordo Xenos Inquisitor Dargasto, and on his death, as an Inquisitor in her own right. Upon inheritance of Dargasto's position, Orakiel gained not only her master's inquisitorial seal and followers, but also a mission of the utmost importance to prevent a second dawn for the ancient star gods known as the Catan. Orakiel is fascinated by alien species and technology, much to the distaste of many of her inquisitorial colleagues. Her blatant use of Xenos weapons and technology has been frowned upon by the more conservative members of the Ordo, as has her use of aliens in her retinue. Rumors state she has, on occasion, cavorted with the enigmatic craft world Eldari, even to the point of having one in her service. Nevertheless, Orakiel's record speaks for itself, and none can deny that she prosecutes the Inquisition's war against the demon, the alien and the heretic with consuming fervor. Inquisitor Auriel. Auriel was an Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos, who foolishly sought to protect the Typhon sector from the assault of an approaching Tyranid hive fleet by releasing, as part of an ill-advised defense study, a Genestealer into the fortress city of Coratanorum on the world of Typhos Prime, which was the headquarters of the Typhos Supreme Guard, the planetary defense force for the world. The Genestealer quickly infected the officers of the Typhos Supreme Guard with its DNA, making them part of its broodmind, and the result was that the Planetary Defense Force rebelled against the Imperium and the planetary authorities, initiating a civil war that would last for more than 2 standard years. While the local Adeptus Arbites did everything in its power to clamp down on the rebellion by increasing control over other cities on the world, they were unable to root out the true cause of the Supreme Guard's betrayal, and eventually fell under the command of the local commissariat. An Astra Militarum force comprised of regiments of the Mordian Iron Guard was ultimately sent to put down the rebellion, and much of the world came under siege. Eventually, acquainted with Colonel Schaefer, Auriel called upon the forces of the 13th Penal Legion, the Last Chancers, to aid him in destroying the heart of the rebellion with a surgical strike at Coratanorum to end the siege. The Last Chancers succeeded in penetrating the fortress and disabling its plasma reactor coolant systems to initiate a massive explosion. But in the course of the intervention, the Last Chancers discovered that it was Auriel who was actually responsible for the start of the rebellion. As the Last Chancers boarded a commandeered shuttle to escape the blast, they prevented Auriel from boarding, and the Inquisitor presumably died in the massive plasma blast that destroyed Coratanorum. Inquisitor Nacius Osrin, a former student of Inquisitor Van Voigens, the man now known as Nacius Osrin, began as a trusted and diligent acolyte. Osrin was chosen for his quick wits and aggressive nature from among the lower hive scum of Solomon, and over time proved his worth to Inquisitor Van Voigens many times during a career that spanned 5 decades of service. Eventually, Osrin was promoted to the rank of Interrogator, and thence to a full Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos. However, not long after his ascension, Osrin's interests shifted, focusing more and more upon sorcery and the arcane. In time, his allegiance shifted away from his mentor and his Ordo, and eventually he disappeared, claiming special circumstances. The Calixis Conclave in the Tricorn Palace on the sector capital world of Scintilla received several reports indicating glimpses of the enigmatic Inquisitor Osrin, including several that claimed he had been seen assisting Space Marines of the Relictors chapter. Other reports indicate that Osrin wandered far into the reaches of the Segmentum Obscurus, all the way out to Belial before and back before he reappeared in the Calixis sector in 803. M41. Osrin's return caused a stir in the Tricorn, for he bore with him ancient Terminator armor of unknown origin and a sword that was unmistakably a demon weapon. Refusing to account for his actions, Osrin avoided a summons from the Tricorn and struck out alone into the Halo stars. Some say he has gathered around him a group of unusual acolytes, mutants, aliens, rogue psyker witches, and even a demon host of incredible power. What he intends to do with such an assorted retinue is still a matter for conjecture. Inquisitor Adriel Quist. Adriel Quist was first noted by Inquisitor Carmillus for her prodigious telepathic abilities. Her sharp, investigative mind distinguished her from her fellow acolytes, and during her time as an interrogator, she was one of a select few brought to the Tower of Brass when her mistress became Inquisitor of the Chamber at Watch Fortress Erioch. 5 short years ago, Quist earned her rosette and remains Carmillus's primary hand in the field. Quist has a deep fascination with alien technology that she keeps tightly concealed. She is all too aware that many around her would brand her a radical or traitor for her desire to see the Imperium match the technological advancement of races like the Tau. She is secretly one of the Crucible Resolviate's principal sources of Xenos artifacts. The fresh Inquisitor would like greatly to find Deathwatch warriors who share her open mind about the path to humanity's advancement, as it would make procuring items of advanced alien technology from their missions far less laborious. Inquisitor Verlaine Remaeus. Verlaine Remaeus is an Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos and the leader of the faction of the Deathwatch known as the Dead Cabal. Inquisitor Gideon Ravenor. Once a handsome and lean man, Ravenor was crippled on Thracian Primaris and is now little more than a lump of crippled flesh living inside a heavily armored casing that serves as a grav chair. In his crippled form, however, his psychic abilities have strengthened, and with the help of psi boosters attached to his grav chair, he has become a much more powerful psyker in the high delta, low gamma range. He once served with Inquisitor Eisenhorn, however. Since Eisenhorn's disappearance, Ravenor has taken charge of Eisenhorn's old retinue of acolytes and throne agents to seek out and destroy all alien threats to the Imperium. Inquisitor Reinhard. Reinhard discovered a cult worshipping aliens on Mandal 44. Using a Deathwatch kill team, he attempted to destroy the cult, which proved to have taken over most of the capital city. After escaping, Reinhard returned with over 500,000. Inquisitor Amberly Vale. Amberly Vale is an Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos, featured in the Siaphus Cain series. What is known of her missions comes from references in the Cain archive, which she has been editing for inquisitorial perusal. It has been suggested that her relationship with Cain is more than professional. Inquisitor Helena Valeria. Inquisitor Helena Valeria has always believed that the work of the Ordo Xenos and the wider Inquisition should be guided by the spirit and intent of the lore, to use the weapons of the enemy against the enemy. This she considers true no matter the source, and can require using warp-tainted weapons against demons or Xenos archaeotech against hostile alien races. For Valeria, there are no lines that cannot be crossed, no edict that cannot be transgressed. The Emperor bade the Inquisition defend mankind from both its own destiny and a hostile galaxy, a task so important that Valeria demands that no methodology, however extreme, should be considered forbidden. In pursuit of this goal, Valeria became a collector of the archaic and arcane, of bibelots and fragments of technological lore, of ancient and alien technologies to be pressed into fresh use. She has spent many decades exploring the ruins of far-flung worlds, poring over age-crumbled documents in races the Samathian libraries, treating with Eldar, Ulumiathi, Draxians, Hrud, and 100 more in order to expand humanity's store of knowledge. Inquisitor Globus Varak. Varak is an Amalathian adherent who serves the Ordo Xenos within the Inquisition's Calixian cabal. Severely wounded as an interrogator while boarding a pirate ship, Varak's body is broken, scarred, and bloated. Both his legs were amputated, and he moves by means of a robust mechanical vehicle with mechanical legs and an inbuilt life support system. His face is horribly burned and pockmarked, with tubes running from his nostrils and mouth to help him breathe. One arm was also lost and has been replaced with an obvious bionic limb. Varak's clothing is a ribbed black body glove that barely holds in his enormous girth and which incorporates cooling and regulating devices to keep him alive. Inquisitor Scarman Havas, following the promulgation of the Orphean Decree that effectively disbanded the Orpheus sector following its scouring by the Necrons during the Orphean War, Inquisitor Sackerman Havas was tasked to investigate the full extent of this catastrophe and compile his search's results to further the cause of the Imperium of mankind. Vass's account on the Orphean War, therefore, stand as the largest, most well-documented, and most reliable sour on the organization, tactics, and methods of the Xenos entities known as Necrons. Inquisitor von Huygens, a disciple of the legendary Inquisitor Cryptman himself, von Huygens is an influential member within the Inquisition's Calixian Cabal. Rarely seen at the Bastion Serpentis, von Huygens represents the Ordo Xenos in the Calixian Inquisitorial Conclave. He is a quietly spoken man who is more of a scholar than a warrior, and though he can certainly look after himself if required, he sees more value in dissecting and studying Xenos than exterminating them. Slender, bespectacled, and dressed in an archivist's robes, von Huygens does not cut as imposing a figure as some of the Tyrantine Cabal's more dramatic characters, but he has the intellect and strength of will to delve into the mindset of the Xenos and still retain his humanity. He leaves the human and demonic threats to the other Inquisitors, focusing instead on helping provide the Imperium with its chief weapon against the alien, an understanding of what the aliens want and what they will do to get it. Though von Huygens seeks knowledge about aliens, he does not trust them and would never fraternize with them. He has not studied a single alien species that does not pose some threat towards the human race. Inquisitor Titus Endor, a Puritan of the Amalathian persuasion, Titus Endor was a member of the Ordo Xenos Helican for most of his career. Tutored by Inquisitor Hapshant alongside the infamous Gregor Eisenhorn, Endor was a close friend of Eisenhorn for most of his life. Endor took part in the final acts of the affair of the Necrotuch early in Eisenhorn's career, and supported his friend when Eisenhorn was accused of heresy by two radical inquisitors for the destruction of the Necrotuch. Over a standard century later, Endor infiltrated the Ocean House, Eisenhorn's residence on Thracian Primaris, in order to warn his friend of accusations of heresy against him. Unbeknownst to Eisenhorn, Endor had been coerced by Inquisitor Leonid Osma into spying on Eisenhorn, and during the assault on Farnus Beta against the heretic Quixos, it was revealed that Endor had intended to arrest Eisenhorn once the battle was over. Disgusted, Eisenhorn sent the badly injured Endor back to the surface. Endor would later contract cerebral brainworms, the same ailment that had killed Hapshant. He was alerted to this by Liebstrom, his former pupil, when Endor exhibited the telltale dementia that the worms caused. Endor would later die of the parasitical assault of the worms upon his mind, just like his master before him, Inquisitor Lord Xavier Calcazar. Xavier Calazar was the Inquisitor Lord of the Ordo Xenos, who oversaw all Inquisition activities in the Coronis Expanse and all Inquisitors active in the region who comprised the Coronis Expanse Conclave. He was the direct superior of Interrogator Heinrich van Kalox, who was a member of his retinue. Calcazar had sought to enlist Theodora von Valancius, the rogue traitor of House von Valancius, to aid him in rooting out the growing Xenos and chaos corruption that existed in the Coronis Expanse, the better to safeguard it for eventual incorporation as a new sector of the Imperium. After Theodora's murder, Calcazar met with the new successor to the von Valancius dynasty on footfall and sought to make clear to them the necessity of their working with the Inquisition to safeguard the Expanse. Calcazar was impressed by many of the rogue traitors' actions in trying to restore stability to the von Valancius protectorate within the Expanse, and offered the service of Heinrich van Kalaox, one of his acolytes, to continue to serve in the rogue traitors' retinue, while also spying upon their actions for the Holy Ordos. The Ordo Xenos, while primarily known for its role in combating alien threats, also maintains a series of highly classified research facilities dedicated to the study and containment of advanced xenotechnology. These facilities, known as Xenotech Vaults, are scattered across the Imperium in remote and heavily fortified locations. The Xenotech vaults serve multiple purposes. Firstly, they act as secure storage for the most dangerous and poorly understood alien artifacts recovered by Inquisitors and their agents. These items are too hazardous to destroy outright, yet too valuable as potential sources of knowledge to discard. Secondly, the vaults house specialized research teams composed of carefully screened tech priests, xenobiologists, and other experts who work tirelessly to unlock the secrets of alien technology. One of the most prominent Xenotech vaults is the Omega Terminus facility, located deep within an asteroid field in the Ghoul stars. This particular vault specializes in the study of Necron technology, housing a vast collection of Necron artifacts ranging from simple scarabs to fragments of advanced energy weapons. The facility is protected by multiple layers of security, including time-locked vaults, null field generators to dampen any latent energy emissions, and a permanent detachment of Grey Knight Space Marines to guard against potential warp incursions. The research conducted in these vaults is not without controversy, even within the Ordo Xenos itself. Some puritanical Inquisitors argue that such close study of Xenos technology inevitably leads to corruption and tech heresy. They point to incidents such as the Cyrus 7 catastrophe, where an entire research team was found to have been subsumed by a sentient Uranthos data construct they were studying. However, proponents of the Xenotech vaults argue that the knowledge gained from these studies is crucial to the Imperium's survival. They cite examples such as the development of enhanced void shields based on principles derived from Eldari technology, or improved bionic augmentations inspired by Tau cybernetics. One of the most secretive projects currently underway in the Xenotech vaults is the Lazarus Protocol. This initiative aims to reverse engineer the life extension technologies used by various Xenos species, particularly the Eldari and the Hrud. The ultimate goal is to find a way to extend the Emperor's life and potentially restore him to full consciousness. However, the project is fraught with danger as it treads dangerously close to tech heresy and risks drawing the ire of both the Adeptus Mechanicus and the more conservative elements of the Inquisition. Another significant area of research within the Xenotech vaults is the study of alien psychic technology. The Ordo Xenos maintains a special facility known as the Imperial Nexus, where they analyze and attempt to replicate Xenos devices that interact with the warp. This research is conducted under the strictest security protocols, with multiple layers of psychic wards and a permanent detachment of Sisters of Silence to nullify any potential psychic anomalies. The Imperial Nexus has yielded some remarkable breakthroughs, including improved methods for detecting and tracking psychic signatures across vast distances. However, it has also been the site of several near-catastrophic incidents, including an attempted demonic incursion triggered by the activation of an Eldari webway shard. In addition to these research initiatives, the Ordo Xenos also maintains a network of containment facilities for live Xenos specimens. These facilities, known as xenobiotic arks, house a diverse array of alien life forms captured during various inquisitorial operations. The specimens range from relatively benign creatures to highly dangerous predators and even sentient beings. The largest of these xenobiotic arks is the Pandora Complex, a massive space station hidden in the halo stars. The complex is divided into multiple biodomes, each simulating the native environment of its inhabitants. Here, Ordo Xenos xenobiologists study the behavior, physiology, and potential weaknesses of various alien species. One of the most controversial sections of the Pandora Complex is the Sentient Containment Wing, where intelligent Xenos are held for long-term observation and interrogation. This practice has been criticized by some as inhumane and potentially dangerous, but defenders argue that the knowledge gained from these subjects is invaluable in understanding and combating Xenos threats. The Ordo Xenos also employs a specialized cadre of operatives known as the Xenoseers. These individuals undergo extensive training and mental conditioning to enable them to think like aliens, predicting their strategies and understanding their motivations. Many Xenoseers spend years immersed in alien cultures, sometimes to the point where their own humanity becomes questionable. The most accomplished Xenoseers are able to infiltrate alien societies, passing themselves off as native members of the species. This has led to some of the Ordo's greatest intelligence coups, including the foiling of a Genestealer cult uprising on Hydrafer and the sabotage of a Tau expansion fleet in the Damocles Gulf. However, the use of Xenoseers is not without risk. There have been instances of these operatives going native, either out of genuine sympathy for their adopted species or as a result of alien mind control techniques. The most infamous case is that of Inquisitor Xerxes Farr, who was discovered to have been secretly working for a Hrud migration fleet for over a century, feeding them classified Imperial information. To counteract these risks, the Ordo Xenos has developed a rigorous screening and monitoring program for its Xenoseers. This includes regular psychic evaluations, memory probes, and even the use of specially trained psychers who can detect subtle signs of alien influence on a subject's mind. Despite the controversies and risks associated with its more esoteric activities, the Ordo Xenos continues to push the boundaries of xenological research and containment. For its leaders, the potential benefits of understanding and potentially harnessing alien knowledge and technology outweigh the considerable dangers. As the Imperium faces ever-growing threats from without and within, the work of the Ordo Xenos in these shadowy realms may prove crucial to humanity's survival in the grim darkness of the far future. While the Ordo Xenos is known for its cooperation with the Deathwatch, it also maintains its own clandestine naval forces, known as the Shadow Fleets. These fleets operate in the darkest regions of space, often beyond the fringes of Imperial territory, carrying out missions too sensitive or controversial for regular Imperial forces. The Shadow Fleets are comprised of a diverse array of vessels, many of which have been extensively modified with experimental or Xenos-derived technology. These modifications are carried out in secret shipyards, hidden in abandoned star systems, or deep within nebulae. The most common alterations include enhanced stealth systems, improved warp drives, and weaponry reverse-engineered from alien technology. One of the most notorious vessels in the Shadow Fleets is the Void Whisper, a strike cruiser that has been fitted with salvaged Necron phase technology. This allows the ship to partially phase in and out of reality, making it nearly impossible to detect or target. The Void Whisper has been instrumental in numerous deep strike missions against Xenos strongholds, including the destruction of a Tyrannid Norn Queen on the edge of the Ghoul Stars. The crews of these ships are drawn from a pool of highly trained and thoroughly vetted individuals. Many are former Imperial Navy personnel who have been recruited for their skills and discretion. Others are more exotic, including sanctioned psychers, tech priests specializing in xenotech, and even carefully controlled Xenos individuals whose unique abilities make them invaluable for certain missions. The Shadow Fleets are organized into several task forces, each with its own area of specialization. The Silence. This task force specializes in covert observation and intelligence gathering. Their ships are equipped with advanced sensor arrays and stealth systems, allowing them to monitor Xenos activity without detection. The Scalpel. Focused on precision strikes and surgical interventions, this task force is often deployed to eliminate specific Xenos threats or extract high-value targets. The Aegis. This defensive-oriented task force is responsible for establishing and maintaining hidden listening posts and forward bases in alien-controlled space. The Orpheus. Perhaps the most secretive of all, this task force is rumored to explore the farthest reaches of the galaxy, seeking out ancient Xenos artifacts and lost human colonies. One of the most significant operations carried out by the Shadow Fleets in recent years was Operation Starfall. This multi-year campaign involved the systematic destabilization of an emerging Xenos empire in the Veiled region. Through a combination of surgical strikes, false flag operations, and carefully orchestrated natural disasters, the Shadow Fleets managed to trigger a civil war that tore the alien civilization apart from within. The Shadow Fleets also play a crucial role in the Ordo Xenos' efforts to contain and study potentially apocalyptic Xenos threats. One such project is the Pandora's Box initiative, which involves the capture and containment of extremely dangerous alien life forms. These specimens are transported in specially designed stasis vessels to secret research facilities scattered throughout the Imperium. One of the most controversial aspects of the Shadow Fleets is their use of captured Xenos vessels. These ships, taken as prizes in various engagements, are studied, modified, and in some cases put into active service. The practice is justified as necessary for understanding and countering alien technology, but it skirts dangerously close to tech heresy in the eyes of many. The flagship of this Xenos-derived fleet is the Twilight Enigma, a vessel of unknown origin that was discovered drifting in the void near the Halo stars. Its technology is so advanced that even after centuries of study, the Adeptus Mechanicus has only begun to scratch the surface of its capabilities. The ship appears to be partially sentient and has shown the ability to reconfigure its internal structure at will. To support their operations, the Shadow Fleets maintain a network of hidden bases and supply caches throughout the galaxy. These range from small, automated resupply stations to entire asteroid bases capable of repairing and refitting starships. One of the largest of these facilities is Port Obsidian, a sprawling complex built into the core of a dead world in the Ghoul stars. Port Obsidian serves as the primary headquarters for Shadow Fleet operations in the galactic north and houses extensive research facilities for studying recovered Xenos technology. The Shadow Fleets also employ a number of specialized units for groundside operations. One of the most elite of these is the Xenarch Commandos, a group of operatives who undergo extensive genetic and cybernetic modification to enhance their ability to operate in alien environments. These commandos are capable of surviving in almost any atmosphere and can even alter their physical appearance to infiltrate Xenos societies. Another key asset of the Shadow Fleets is the Cipher Corps, a group of savants and tech adepts who specialize in breaking alien codes and interfacing with Xenos computer systems. The Cipher Corps has been instrumental in numerous intelligence coups, including the interception and decryption of Tau battle plans during the Zeiss campaign. Despite their effectiveness, the existence of the Shadow Fleets remains a point of contention within the Inquisition and the wider Imperium. Critics argue that the fleets represent an unacceptable concentration of power in the hands of a few Inquisitors, and that their use of Xenos technology borders on heresy. Supporters counter that the unique capabilities of the Shadow Fleets are essential for combating threats that conventional Imperial forces are ill-equipped to handle. The future of the Shadow Fleets remains uncertain. As the threats facing the Imperium continue to grow in complexity and scale, the need for such specialized forces becomes ever more apparent. Yet the risks inherent in their operations of exposure, of corruption by alien influences, or of their technology falling into the wrong hands cannot be ignored. For now, the Shadow Fleets continue to operate in the darkness between the stars, a silent bulwark against the alien menaces that threaten humanity's dominion over the galaxy.